Welcome, everyone. Good evening, parents and guardians, and even I think I saw some FSL students here as well. So we're really excited that you decided to share your evening with us tonight. So we are excited to host our very first FSL Family Literacy Evening event. So yay, it's our first event. We are doing this because it is Catholic Education Week, and we want to celebrate Catholic education, and we thank you for your ongoing support of not only Catholic education, but of FSL programs in Dufferin Peel. So I want to thank you for taking time out this evening to share your evening with us and to learn a little bit more about literacy in FSL programs. I just want to apologize if any of you had any trouble registering. I know there was some issues with links and whatnot, but you are here this evening, and some of you really persevered and tried different links. So we're really grateful that you took the time to join us this evening. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so we've established some norms so that this event does run smoothly. We have muted all of the mics. Okay, so unfortunately you cannot unmute. Reason being, we're expecting close to 100 people in our session today. So any interaction that we are going to have is going to happen via the chat. So that chat button is just at the bottom, I think. Am I pointing in the right direction, or is it at the top? It's the chat button, and that's where you're gonna click on. It will open a window to the chat, and you can type in questions, comments, and we will have opportunities to interact with you through the chat. We also ask that there's no recording, that you don't record this on your computer or any type of device on your cell phone, or any audio. We are going to record this presentation, and it will be posted on the board website, so we ask you not to record. So as I mentioned, this presentation will be recorded. Because it is being recorded, and that does include the chat, we ask you, if you're asking questions about FSL programs, that you do not use any student names. We also ask you not to use teacher names because all of this information is being recorded. Okay, with that being said, we are recording and we are excited to start our presentation. Welcome to FSL Family Literacy Evening. We're going to play the land acknowledgement.
Nous commençons en reconnaissant cette terre ainsi que notre responsabilité de prendre soin et de respecter tout ce que la création nous offre pour vivre. Visée par des traités, cette terre sur laquelle nous vivons, travaillons et subvenons à nos besoins est la terre ancestrale des Mississauga Ganashnabek, aussi connue aujourd'hui comme les Mississaugas of the Credit. Ils sont les gardiens légitimes et les titulaires du titre de cette terre. Nous reconnaissons aussi que cette terre est riche en histoire qui précède l'arrivée des Européens, ainsi qu'en relations qui incluent ceux des Anishinaabeg et des Onkohone. Depuis l'arrivée des Européens, cette terre a été et continue de devenir le foyer des peuples autochtones et non autochtones. En tant que communauté responsable, nous croyons que tout le monde est sacré et possède une valeur et une dignité fondamentale et incommensurable. Le colonialisme a déplacé et dépossédé les peuples autochtones de leur terre ancestrale et continue à nier leurs droits humains fondamentaux, leur dignité et leur liberté. Nous sommes engagés au sacrement de réconciliation, à faire réparation et à respecter nos obligations, devoirs et responsabilités soulignées dans le Godot Nagana Wampum. Ce traité nous guide à maintenir activement des relations mutuellement bénéfiques et affirme un respect et un soin collectif de la terre, l'eau, les animaux les uns les autres pour garantir une bonne vie pour nos futurs descendants. Nous commençons.
Good evening. We are now going to do our prayer for Catholic Education Week. So if you can join me in the sign of our faith. Au nom du Père, du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Dieu de grâce, aide-nous à redécouvrir comment vivre les uns avec les autres, afin de rebâtir nos communautés de foi et l'apprentissage. Aide-nous à rétablir l'équilibre et l'harmonie dans nos relations et viens renouveler notre volonté d'aborder les défis avec confiance et un cœur paisible. Puissions-nous toujours nous réjouir en reconnaissant ta bonté dans notre vie. Amen. Au nom du Père, du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. So good evening, everyone. At this time, we'd like to present ourselves. So my name is Matias Ramirez. I am the consultant for French language programs at the Dauphin Peel Catholic District School Board, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you tonight virtually.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Natasha Moore. I am the academic coordinator at the Dauphin Peel Catholic District School Board. And in my portfolio, I do have FSL programs as well as English language learning. And so we encapsulate all that by calling it multilingual language learning.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacqueline DeVoe Matthews. I am a consultant in the Equitable and Inclusive Education Department. My background is in as a French educator. I have taught core French for 9 years and French immersion for 8 years.
Bonjour tout le monde. I am Miranda Brandt, and currently I am a grade 1 French immersion teacher at St. Angela Merici in Brampton. It's a pleasure being with you tonight.
Salut à tous. My name is Rose Furchi, and I am an FSL teacher with Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board, currently teaching core French. Nice to meet you all, and I hope you enjoy this evening.
So we're going to start with a quote here. You can't make your child speak a language. However, you can set the stage so they will want to speak it. And I think that's a great way to start our session. Definitely engagement is what we want in FSL programs. We want our kids to feel engaged and feel motivated to speak in French and want to speak and want to learn. And so we hope that this evening we're going to motivate you to, or help you to motivate your child and maybe motivate some of the FSL students that are with us this evening. So just a quick overview of the structure of our evening. So we are going to do a quick overview of the various FSL programs in Dufferin Peel. And then we're going to look at the strands that we're going to focus on this evening. So we're going to look at listening and speaking, and then go into reading and the two components with reading. And finally, we will share some additional resources and parent supports, and we will end the session with a live Q&A.
So we wanted to do a brief overview of the elementary FSL programs. We understand that we have a lot of families tonight with us that currently have a child in an FSL program at Dufferin Peel, whether it be immersion, extended, and core. So we wanted to do a brief overview so you understand the differences between each program. And we also know that we have families that are that the child is starting French immersion in September or extended French. So hopefully this brief overview gives you a better understanding of the differences between the programs. So let's start with core French. So core French is the program at Dufferin Peel that is mandatory for all students. It starts in grade 4, and it is our program that is a ministry mandate, a ministry requirement for all students to begin the program. And it is also the least amount of hours in terms of the 3 programs that there are at Dufferin Peel. So by the end of grade 8, it's a minimum of 600 hours that they had in French language instruction. That comes to about 40 minutes per day, so a 40-minute period of French language education starting in grade 4. It is mandatory all the way until grade 9. So grade 9, they have to do a high school credit. And it is a requirement for the Ontario High School diploma. Let's talk now about extended French. Now, unlike core that you can find in every elementary school in Dufferin Peel, extended French is only found at certain schools in the board. It is a program that starts in grade 5 at Dufferin Peel at 50% of the time in French language instruction. So they will continue at 50% all the way until grade 8. And that comes to a minimum of around 1,900 hours of French language instruction by the end of elementary. Students then have the opportunity, the choice, if they want to continue with the extended French program in high school. French Immersion. French Immersion is the program in Dufferin Peel that offers the most hours in French language instruction. By the end of grade 8, we're talking around 3,800 hours. So a big difference if you compare it to core French and extended. It starts in grade 1 in our board. It is different depending on school boards, but in Dufferin Peel, it is in grade 1. In grade 1, we start with a very strong foundation, a 90% of instruction in French. Then in grades 2 and 3, it goes down to 70%. Then the gradual reduction from grade 4 to grade 8, where in those grades it's at 50%. And like extended French, students have an opportunity, if they want to continue in French immersion, to keep going in high school, where they have to do a minimum of 10 credits in the language. So that was a brief overview that gives you an understanding of the programs that we have in our board.
Okay, and the FSL curriculum is divided into 4 strands: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It's important to note that although these strands are different, they are very much interrelated and strengthen one another. So we are going to begin with the listening strand tonight. And there we go. The FSL curriculum supports students in building their listening skills and developing strategies to support comprehension, as well as interacting with others. So today we're going to share some ideas that we can use, or you can use, parents, to help develop and support your child's French listening skills through participating in an interactive listening activity happening next. Okay, so prior to listening, it's important to prepare for listening, and one can do that by putting toys off to the side, or entering a space away from distractions and noises to ensure that your child is giving the speaker their full attention. Also, it is an opportunity for them to activate their prior knowledge by surveying the text. So they can do this by looking for visual clues. So if you look at the picture on the right, this is the video we will be looking at tonight. And for right now, I would like you to type in the chat box, children and parents, what you see in the picture. Qu'est-ce que tu vois? So let's start our listening activity. So we're just going to take a look at what we see. What do you see in the picture? Yeah, a boy making pizza. There's a fridge in the background. Perfect. Great. Another thing that we can do while surveying a text is look at the title, the titre. So yeah, a lot of you wrote it down. Yep, faire une pizza, excellent. Yep, a spoon with sauce, a person making a pizza, awesome. So we're going to use those visual clues, and we're going to use the title as well to make a prediction of what we think the text is going to be about, or what it's trying to inform us about. Good. So some people said a person making pizza. Awesome. So we're using those visual clues to help us make predictions. Great. Now, so that was the before listening strategies. So now we're going to move on to what we can do while we're listening to the text tonight. So some ways to verify understanding would be through looking at the pictures. Parents, you could also ask them to identify familiar words that they're hearing while listening to the text. Paying attention to the gestures or the facial expressions. How is the child feeling and why? Ask them some questions like, in the video, you'll specifically see the boy setting a timer. You might say, I wonder why he's setting a timer. Continue to make some predictions as you're going along. What do you think might happen next and how do you know? And make connections to confirm understanding. Like, what does this remind you of? Was there a specific time that you made a pizza or a procedural event happened? So we're going to watch the video now, and I want you to keep those strategies in mind and ask your child some of these questions while they're participating in the listening activity.
Faire une pizza.
Voyons ce que Liam prépare. Voici tous ses ingrédients préférés. Es-tu prêt à faire une pizza?
Oui, je suis prêt.
Es-tu prêt?
D'abord, il faut toujours se laver les mains.
Quelle bonne idée! Liam savonne ses mains à l'eau tiède avant de cuisiner.
Il est temps de mettre mon tablier.
Wow, Liam! Quel beau tablier!
Maman, tu peux venir m'aider, s'il vous plaît?
Demander de l'aide aux besoins est une excellente idée.
Merci. Quand je sers la sauce, je vais clou, 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 clou. On veut beaucoup de sauce. Regarde.
Un peu à la fois.
Et là, jusqu'à temps que nous avons recouvert toute la pizza. Il n'y a jamais trop de garniture. Je mets les champignons. Ça, comme ça.
Des champignons.
Comme ça, comme ça.
Des poivrons.
Partout. Il va pleuvoir des fromages. Il pleut du fromage.
Et le fromage.
Là, en ajoutant sur les coins.
Bien réparti.
Je crois que c'est prêt pour le four. Demande de l'aide pour mettre la pizza dans le four.
Liam aide sa maman en faisant très attention.
Wow.
On règle la minuterie. Bien joué!
Ça, c'est le temps pour cuire ma pizza. Oh. C'est prêt.
Ça a l'air délicieux.
Oh oui. Voilà ma pizza à la Picasso.
Les mains bien lavées, j'attache mon tablier. Sur la pâte étalée, j'éteins la sauce tomatée. Champignons, fromage et poivrons, c'est bon. Demande de l'aide pour le four avant que tu la savoures. Es-tu prêt? Es-tu prêt?
Bon appétit.
On dirait bien que Liam est prêt à faire une pizza. Et toi, es-tu prêt?
Je suis prêt. Es-tu prêt?
Great. So after listening to the text, it's now time to move on to the strategies that you can use after listening to the text. So some things you can do at home, parents, in order to allow students to demonstrate their understanding and organize their ideas. It can be done in various ways. You could ask them to draw a picture of the main idea of what they heard tonight. Maybe they could summarize the text using the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, and how, or orally retell the event. So you could ask them, what did he do first? What was his next step, etc. It's also a great opportunity for students to improve and develop their listening skills by reflecting, setting goals, monitoring their progress, and determining next steps for themselves. So therefore, a question that you may ask your child, and one that I'm going to ask you now, is what helped you understand today's text? In the chat box, if you'd like to write down what helped you understand today's text, what strategy was really helpful for you? And it's also beneficial to encourage students to listen to the text at least 3 times so that they can validate their understanding. His actions and visuals. Yes, good. Excellent. Any other strategies? Actions. Good, good. I'm glad. Excellent. Predicting and brainstorming ideas first. Fantastic. Was there any strategy that you found difficult? Something that you found difficult throughout? Either whether it was before, during, or after listening to the text. Trying to understand. Yeah, maybe it was a bit too fast. So you can encourage, like I said, you can encourage your child to go back and listen to it a couple times so that they can validate their understanding. And then a final question that you can ask your child would be, what can they do next time to help them improve? Yeah, playing it a second and third time helps. Awesome. So they're setting goals for themselves of how they can improve. Excellent. On the next slide, I have included some resources to help enhance listening skills from Mini TFO, Idelo, Cuckoo, MAJ, and Francolab for your reference as well, and they will be provided to you shortly. Yes, using French subtitles is awesome. It's a great visual tool to help you understand the text as well. Thank you for including that in the chat. Awesome. And we are going to move on to listening now. Oh, I'm sorry, speaking.
Hello, everyone. So we will continue with speaking. And speaking and listening go really well together. So it's really nice that we're continuing with speaking. So speaking is really at the center of learning a language. So if you look at the slide right now, there is this quote, reading and writing float on a sea of talk. So if you think about how humans learn a language, right? We usually learn our first language at 2 years old, 3 years old. And how do we learn the language, right? By hearing our parents, by hearing our family members, by hearing people around us. And we imitate, right? It's a lot of modeling and a lot of imitating. So really, that same human process continues when we're older. So when a student, a child is learning a new language, we have to put a lot of focus, a lot of time into the listening and speaking. Before reading and writing, those will gradually become more and more important, and they'll take more space. But if your child is a beginner in the language, you really want to put a lot of focus into the speaking. So that's why we said the reading and the writing will float on a sea of talk. So really talking will take a lot of time at the beginning. Now, we understand the reality that how do you support your child practicing speaking the language at home, outside of school, if yourself, you don't speak French. So that's a reality, and we know that's a reality for a lot of the parents in our programs, whether it's immersion, extended, or core. And the reality is you don't need to be proficient in French, whether you have no proficiency or just a little bit. You don't need it to support your child outside of school hours, right? So school is going to play its role during the hours of the day, but in the evenings, on the weekends, on holidays, during the summer, you can play a role. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight for the speaking part, is how you can make a difference, because the progress will really come with the partnership and a collaboration between home and school. Now, we have these little puzzles here, these puzzle pieces on the screen to give you some ideas of how you can play that role at home into supporting your child for speaking. So let's start with the yellow on the left side. So first is that you have to make space for French at home. There has to be space for French language at home. You can't just give it up all to school and the teachers to take care of it. You have to make space for the language at home. So a great tip would be to ask your child to share what he or she is learning at school. So whether it's a conversation in the evening or a few times during the week, take an interest in what your child is learning in French. Ask him questions or ask her to teach you what she's been learning or what he's been learning. So making space for French at home will make a huge difference. When we're making space for the language, we're also talking about music, TV shows, films, YouTube videos, having media, French-speaking media, Francophone media in your home makes a difference. Literature, picture books, novels, posters. If those things are in the house and your child is encountering them in your home, it will make a difference. So that's something that everyone can do. If we look now at the green puzzle, encourage your child to make connections between French and other languages that are spoken in the home. A beautiful thing in Dufferin Peel is that we have so much diversity, and a lot of times in households, there's several languages being spoken other than French. So there might be connections in terms of vocabulary that is similar, or how is something said in French, how is something said in English, and how is it said in another language. Making those connections for your child will help him or her make a lot of progress. Now, if we look at the pink puzzle piece at the top, invite your child to use French outside of school whenever there's a possibility. And I know that takes, sometimes it takes, the willingness to take risks, to have a little bit of courage, but we encourage you to invite your child to seize that opportunity. So whether it's meeting French speakers in public, you're at the grocery store and you hear some French being spoken down at the grocery store, at the restaurant, embracing the opportunity for your child to use the language, whether it's just a few words, that gives it a practical use. It makes it more real for your child, that it's not something that's just limited to school, but that it's also happening outside in the public. Also, it can happen when you're traveling, if you're going to parts of the world where French is used, or with classmates, right? If there is a play date, or if your child is meeting classmates outside of school hours and they're in the French immersion program, maybe a little bit of time can be dedicated to practicing the language. So we understand that takes a lot of initiative, but it makes a huge difference. For the red puzzle piece, invite him or her to record himself or herself speaking French. So sometimes in the household, the child might not have anybody to practice the language with. So recording himself or her and then hearing back can really help the child monitor and reflect on their communication. So that would be a good activity to also try. And in a few minutes, when we talk about suggested activity at home for practicing speaking, it actually involves recording. If you look at the blue puzzle piece, label objects in your home in French. That works a lot, especially for primary learners, but also our junior learners in grade 4 or 5 who are starting French, core French, or extended French. If you label objects, items, or rooms into your house with the French vocabulary, and the child is encountering them on a frequent basis, your child is like a sponge. A lot of that learning will stay with him or her. And finally, if you look at the gray puzzle piece, if you ask your child to think about their volume when they speak French, right? Are they speaking loud enough? Their body language, their tone, that also makes a difference, right? Because it is a second or third language, speaking loud enough, having a tone that is upbeat can make a big difference. So we hope these tips are useful. Now, for our speaking activity that we're suggesting to you tonight, it is going to be at this expectation in the curriculum where it's using the language to communicate ideas. So it's going to involve different speaking strategies, and you have to keep in mind the purpose and the audience. So we are looking at that expectations because we know at home sometimes it's hard to use the language to interact. So we're going to look at the expectation to communicate. Now, here's the suggested activity we want to do with you tonight. So if you remember the activity from our listening component, it was a video where a child was making a pizza, a how-to video, right? How to make a pizza. Now, if your child takes on that challenge of making a video and recording them himself or herself, and definitely parents or older siblings can help, recording a how-to video in French can be a really fun activity, a creative activity that requires some planning, that requires practice. And when it is completed, your child has gone through different strategies that would help with their speaking. So we have some examples on the slide. There are different examples depending on the age of the student. So if your child is in grade 1, grade 2, something like brushing their teeth or getting ready in the morning. Those are cool ideas of making a short video, a couple of minutes in French of how your child goes about it in their daily life. If your child is older, if you're thinking about junior, intermediate, it can be something a little bit more elaborate. It could be how to play their favorite game, whether it's a sport, a video game, how to upload a video to YouTube. Those are all different examples. And we advise for you to take an activity that is really appropriate for the age. Now, here are some strategies when you are planning and preparing to record yourself to speak the language in a how-to video. It's very important to collect the needed vocabulary. So you should have a blueprint and a plan of what you're going to say. And looking up that vocabulary, using a dictionary or an online service, a dictionary website, can help you with pronunciation, can help you with the spelling, can help you identify which words you will need to communicate. Also, organizing your ideas, right? So from the beginning till the end, what are you going to start with? What are you going to do second and third and so on and so forth? Reflecting on tone, reflecting on volume and body language when you're filming is also very useful. You can make it very fun, creativity using props. If your child has the skills for video editing, that can also be something that you can explore. And the video that was shared in the listening component can also serve as a model. So later on in the presentation, when we share with you the resources for this video series, that will give you an opportunity to explore different videos that are part of that series, and you can use them as an example of what you can strive with your child. So thank you for listening to the speaking part.
Okay, alors bonsoir tout le monde. As mentioned earlier, Madame DeVoe-Matthews and we will be tackling the reading portion of tonight's literacy night. So as you can see, these are the overall expectations that pertain to reading in the FSL Ontario curriculum. And tonight we are going to focus on reading comprehension, essentially determining meaning in a variety of French texts. So I'm going to give you a few moments here. You can see from the timer that you're going to have 30 seconds. And very simply, I'd like you to try and read this sentence. All right. What do you understand? Do you understand the entire sentence? Do you have to sound out any particular words? Please take a moment. Okay, so perhaps some of you were able to read it right away with no problem and understood the meaning of the sentence, but the reality is that perhaps some of us hummed and hawed a little bit on certain words. Perhaps we gravitated towards certain words in particular because from our past French experiences or based on our comfort level, perhaps, you know, some of us struggled a little bit more. Now here we have the English translation of the video of the sentence that I had given you, as well as how the sentence is supposed to sound in English through a funny video.
Green, vert, towards, vert, glass, vert, pour, verse, worm, vert. A green worm pours a glass towards the glassmaker around 8 o'clock. Un verre vers un verre vers un verrier vers 20 heures.
Oh, ver.
So we can go to the next slide. So in the simple view of reading, it states that there are two components to achieve the ultimate goal of reading comprehension, which is decoding and language comprehension, and essentially word recognition. And the two work hand in hand in order, again, to attain that goal of reading comprehension. If we're unable to decode a word, which I will explain in just a second what that means, but we have word recognition or language comprehension, we're not going to attain reading comprehension. And likewise, if we are able to decode, but we don't have that word recognition, again, we won't attain reading comprehension. So this is the reason why we decided to divide reading into two parts. And today I will be getting into the nitty-gritty of decoding. So exactly what is decoding? Well, decoding is the ability to take letter sound knowledge and be able to blend those sounds together to make words. And then essentially those words become sentences, those sentences become paragraphs, those paragraphs become chapters, and those chapters become novels and books. And the reason why this is so important, because decoding allows the reader to easily identify familiar words, but also enables a student to figure out words that they have never seen before. So tonight, I am going to propose 3 activities or exercises that you can try at home. I know I do these in my classroom, and I know that they work, so hopefully you find the same success with them as well. So the 3 exercises are identifier or identifying, fusionner or blending, and then the third one we will review is segmenter or segmenting. So let's go to the first exercise, identifier or identifying. So Madame DeVaux-Matthews was so kind to volunteer as my student for tonight. Alors, merci, Madame DeVaux-Matthews. Alors, Madame DeVaux-Matthews, peux-tu dire le mot terrain?
Terrain.
Excellent. Maintenant, peux-tu étirer, stretch, le mot est terrain comme une gomme à mâcher, like bubble gum. Can you stretch the word out, s'il te plaît?
Terrain.
Excellent, Madame DeVaux-Matthews. Alors, Madame DeVaux-Matthews, qu'est-ce que c'est le premier son dans le mot terrain?
Le premier son, terrain.
Oui, très bien, exactement. So what just so what just happened was I gave her a word. Madame DeVoe Matthews repeated it. We stretched out the word, imagining it was like bubble gum or an elastic band. Again, always with a tactile action to reinforce the concept. And then all leading towards, all scaffolding towards answering the question of what's the first sound? Again, you can do this, you can repeat this exercise with the same word or a different word, and trying to identify this time the last sound or the medial sounds. Depending on which grade you're in and your comfort level with this activity, you could start with a word that's only 2 sounds and then build up to 3, 4, and longer sounds. OK, on continue à la deuxième exercice, s'il vous plaît. OK, alors la deuxième exercice maintenant, c'est fusionner or blending. Alors, Madame DeVoe Matthews, écoutez s'il te plaît. E-I-S-A. Peux-tu répéter s'il te plaît?
E-I-S-A.
Excellent, Madame DeVoe Matthews. Alors, maintenant, peux-tu fusionner or glisse les sons ensemble? Écoute. Lisa.
Lisa.
Excellent, merci. Alors, cette fois-ci, Madame DeVoe Matthews, un peu plus vite. Comme, écoute, Lisa.
Lisa.
Excellent. Et la dernière fois, le plus vite que possible. Lisa.
Lisa.
Excellent, merci. So in this exercise called blending, we started off with, we isolated the sound, each different sound in the word Lisa. And through repetition, and again, through that kinesthetic and tactile reminder, we built up to reading, or we built up to the word as a whole, the word Lisa as a whole. And then for our third and final exercise for tonight, we have segmenter or segmenting. You could think of segmenting as the opposite to fusionner. In fusionner, we start with the individual sounds and go to the whole word. In segmenter, we start with the whole word and we're going to isolate each sound. You will see. Alors, Madame DeVoe Matthews, peux-tu dire, répète le mot pour.
Pour.
Excellent. Alors, Madame DeVoe Matthews, peux-tu segmenter le mot pour? Regarde, s'il te plaît. P ou re.
P ou re.
Excellent. And I love how you're saying p and not peu. Très bien, Madame DeVoe Matthews.
Merci, Mademoiselle Brand.
Alors, she's never done this before. Alors, Madame DeVoe Matthews, combien de sons entends-tu? Combien de sons?
P ou re. J'entends 3 sons.
Excellent. Et que sont les 3 sons?
P ou re.
Excellent. And then, alors, merci beaucoup, Madame DeVoe Matthews, for being my student tonight.
De rien.
So again, as a little recap, here you saw and heard that we started with the entire word, and we broke up the word into its individual sounds. We isolated each sound. You might have seen that Madame DeVaux-Matthews and myself, we were, for each individual sound, we were tapping our fingers each time for each new sound. Another idea that personally that I like to do in class is I have the kids put one hand on their heart and the other hand counts the different sounds. For example, p, u, r. So right away, the child felt 3 taps on their chest, and they see, there are 3 different sounds. Another idea instead of this or the heart thing is using the poppet. Finally, an educational reason to use the poppet. So again, likewise, for each new sound, you can push down on the poppet toy. And then if you wish, you can apply, the next step would be to try and write the word out. Okay. Now, finally, I have 3 resources that I'd like to share with you. The first one, French Phoneme Pronunciation Guide, is specifically geared towards parents and teachers to reinforce the proper pronunciation of the French sounds. The final 2, Phonétique Animée and Chanson Phonique, are geared towards primary, early junior, I would say. Again, songs that focus on the individual sounds in French. And to conclude my portion on reading, in particular decoding, I would like to end with this quote. If a child memorizes 10 words, the child can only read 10 words. But if a child learns the sounds of 10 letters, the child will be able to read 350 3-word sounds, 4,320 four-sound words, and 21,650 5-sound words. So again, bringing the importance of starting with the smallest piece of the letter-sound relationship, moving towards perhaps syllables, and then words, then sentences, paragraphs, and then books and stories. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Jacqueline, on to you.
Merci, Mademoiselle Brandt. Okay, so we know that decoding is foundational to reading, but once students are on beyond decoding, we know that they need more assistance with comprehension to help them become successful independent readers. Strategic reading allows students to monitor their own thinking and make connections between text and their own experience. These strategies help students be more comfortable reading so they can love reading and find out more about themselves through texts. This is different from decoding. Reading should bring pleasure. We want children to want to enter into it. And as families, we want this experience to build connections, understanding, develop curiosity, and allow children to explore ideas. Tonight, we're going to look at 3 strategies: making connections, questioning, and retelling. So our first strategy we're going to start with is making connections. Why do we offer student stories? We offer student stories so that they can understand their own story. Students who make connections while reading are better able to understand the text they're reading. It's important for them to draw on their prior knowledge and experiences to connect with the text. They're thinking. You might notice that when a student starts reading a book, initially they might start off a little bit slowly. You might notice that it might be a little bit choppy, but as they engage with the material and start to make connections, we notice that fluency improves. It becomes more natural, because they're relating to the material that they're reading. So this is why book choice is so important. When we read about something we know, we read naturally. Students who are able to make connections can enter into a text and relate it to their lived experience of the world around them. We may notice surface connections such as, hey, relate to that book. I can make a connection. I've played soccer. And deep, authentic connections that might sound like, I know exactly what that kid in the book felt like when they didn't score the goal. That's so frustrating. That's happened to me. So there's a deep connection happening there that helps them to understand. Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop talks about the fact that texts can be mirrors for children to see themselves reflected. They can be windows into the world of someone else, and they can be sliding glass doors that allow them to actually enter into different lived experiences and learn about others. So it's really important to think about book choice and to give students agency in choosing what they'd like to read. When we think about text, it's important to consider a variety of picture books, graphic novels, poems, informational texts, comic strips, blogs, video game manuals, and even watching TV. That's right, watching TV. A great suggestion for at home is to have your children watch a movie of their choice and listen to audio in English while reading subtitles in French. Or vice versa. And once you've practiced that and they've had a chance to build some confidence, then you could switch the audio to French and the subtitles to French. We want them to do this slowly and to practice it. So our next strategy we're going to look at is questioning. Stories can offer children opportunities to find out more about the world and about themselves. Children are naturally curious. From the moment we pick up a book, we wonder what it might be about, whether we might be interested, will we learn something new? As we read, we start to wonder what might happen next. Why did that character do that? After reading, we might ask ourselves, now what? What can I do with this information, or what's next? As a family member, you might consider asking, did you learn anything new? We like to think about questions in terms of thin, thick, and unanswerable, and sometimes the unanswerable questions are the best ones. They give us an opportunity to enter into the world of children, to become co-learners with them. So a child reading a book on space might ask, do parallel universes exist? That gives us a springboard into researching. Children often ask things like, what does God look like? We have to be comfortable as caring adults to say sometimes, hey, we don't know. Let's see what we can find out together. Students who ask questions about text are engaging. They're making judgments, evaluating information, and constructing knowledge. And when we ask them to do that, and we value the questions that they have, we're showing them that their voice is important, and we're empowering them in their ability to think critical about the information presented to them, and we give them the tools to extend this to the world around them. Our last strategy we're going to look at is retelling. So you might have had your children come home, or teachers encourage students to retell in the correct sequence to identify main ideas and supporting details. And that's all very important. But what if we reframed that from just simply retelling a story to asking for understanding? Important questions we can ask are things like, tell me more about what you read today. What stood out for you? What will you think about later on? What do you want to forget about because it didn't make you feel good, or it brought up a feeling you don't want to sit with anymore? This strategy asks students to think about the big idea and contextualizing it. A book about dinosaurs might lead to a story about fossils. When we listen to children, we might hear that they're actually interested in time, what happens over time to dinosaurs, or discovery. They might want to dig things up and see what's there. So as adults, we have to be intentional about connecting those ideas. The most important thing we can do is listen for what they're telling us and what resonated with them. We want children to love reading. We want it to be enjoyable. And when we connect it to their curiosity, interest, and experiences, we do that for them. When children are reading in a language they're learning, they work to both figure out the words and to think about what they're reading. Retelling is a really important part of that. On our next slide, we have a little activity. So we're going to practice. You're going to see an image. I'm going to ask you, what are you wondering? What stories might live in this space? What's happening here? When we invite children to think about what they're seeing and to become storytellers, we allow them to engage their imagination, make authentic connections, and we show them how much they are valued. Imagine the power that lies in telling a child, wow, you're a great storyteller. Next up, we are going to look at a few one-sentence stories. So these are very, very short stories, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond in the chat. What questions do you have? What connections do you make to these stories? Where do they sit with you? Are some more relevant than others? Why might that be? What do they provoke for you? What do you want to forget? Do any of them make you want to share with someone? Do they make you want to reach out? And just being very cognizant of the time right now, please feel free to answer in the chat, but I am going to keep going. Our next slide shows us again the book that Mademoiselle Brandt presented, Un terrain de jeu pour Lisa. These questions come from the work of Dr. Rudine Sims, who talks about mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. So when we look at the questions that are on the screen, the most important one is, why does it matter? Who might this be a mirror for? This little girl, Lisa, is in a wheelchair. She comes to a new school and the playground is not accessible. So in the story, Lisa's new friends, along with the school, fundraise and they create a new playground that's wheelchair accessible. So when we invite students into this story, what world do they step into, and why does it matter that they're able to walk into the world with a different perspective? It's important to shift our thinking in this way. When we ask our students, who were the characters and what sequence happened in the story versus what did you learn? Who did you see? What do you want to know more about? What are you wondering? Or what other stories live in a playground like that? How could this reframe the conversations we have with them? And how could it teach them to know themselves and see themselves within the story? And that's it for me.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Deveau-Matthews. Merci beaucoup. So we are now coming to the last section of our presentation tonight. Up to this point, we've talked a lot about different strategies for listening, speaking, and reading. Now we want to end with additional resources that will support you and your child with learning the French language at home. So the first resource we want to tell you about is the FSL monthly activities from the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board. So our FSL team at Dufferin Peel is making available to families monthly activities for speaking, listening, reading, and writing. The activities are organized around grades and programs. So you will find activities from grade 1 to grade 8 for French immersion and extended French. These can also be used for students in core. For example, because core students start French in grade 4, some of the primary activities in grade 1 or grade 2 French immersion could work for those students in core starting in grade 4 or grade 5. So please take a look at them. We have the instructions here on the slide. You would have to visit the board website, so the Dufferin Peel board website. The number 2 step is that you would have to select programs and services. It will be a tab at the top that it's in green, programs and services. Then you'll have to choose languages and then select French immersion and extended French. Please don't stress. This resource with the link will be made available to our participants at the end of the presentation. So we'll share a link with you that will have a link to the monthly activities from Dufferin Peel. These are great. There's a lot of resources in there, a lot of activities. They go from October all the way to right now we are in May. So there are many activities for the different seasons, for the different times of the year. And these are accessible, these are free, so please make use of them.
So the first one is called Camp Tourney. It is an organization operating in the Greater Toronto area. They offer French summer camps, virtual camps, French classes and tutoring, focusing, a lot of them do focus on comprehension and interacting with others. So if you are interested, for more information, you can visit www.camptournesol.ca.
And the next program is Allianz Francaise. They have various campuses throughout Ontario, actually. But the closest one in Dufferin Peel would be in the Mississauga campus. And at Allianz Francaise, they're dedicated to promoting the French language and Francophone cultures. They do have various programs, March break camps, summer camps, that you could sign up for that start as early as age 5.
Our next resource is Canadian Parents for French. This is a nationwide organization, and they're committed to French as a second language education. So this is parents of children who are in French programs, and they provide families and students with resources. They put out book lists, suggested movies, tips and tools for learning at home. But what I'd like to call your attention to tonight is their free online programs. So on their website, you can register for them. They are free, and they are organized by grade. So we have 7 to 12, 1 to 8, and there's also, I believe, a reading corner. This is a great way for students to have more exposure to French, to practice speaking with others in a way that's done outside of school, virtually in your house, and again, all free. Okay, next, our next resource is Bukili. This is put out through TFO. You can download it at the App Store. It can be accessed online. So this is more for students in young primary grades. If your child is going into French immersion in grade 1 in the fall, you might want to start them off on this. It will do a little test. They're very short texts and they have follow-up questions. It's very, very easy to use, very comprehensive, and lots of fun.
And the next resource is an online resource called Lelilo. It's an online tool for students in grades 1 and 2 primarily. Exercises are on phonics, word recognition, and comprehension. You can sign up for free and create an account for free.
So these are a lot of resources in French, and we have one more for you, Idelo. Idelo is a great place online where you can find tons of videos. So we showed some videos for listening, the listening component of tonight's presentation. For example, that series of videos, you will find it on Idelo. Idelo is a virtual media library. The great thing, that word that we love, it's free. So parents, students can go on the Idelo website and create a free account and get access to hundreds of videos in French in different subjects for different grades. It can be as young as primary and it goes all the way to high school. There's great filters to search videos on Idelo, and you can search them by subject, by level of proficiency, by age. So all these resources that we're mentioning, you will be given a link at the end of the presentation to see the different resources that we've talked about and access them.
And just some final thoughts about supporting your child at home. So this is a ministry guide that was put out for parents. It is in the process of being updated, but we do want to share some key information with you from this guide. So a great thing that you can do is join. There are local groups and you can meet other parents. I know when your child is in French immersion or extended French, you start to get to know the other parents in that program as well. So just developing a sense of community and supporting each other. Also encouraging your child to speak French outside of the school hours. And I know Mr. Ramirez talked about this and gave some more ideas about how this could happen at home. Going to the library and taking out books. We heard Mrs. Matthews talk about how, you can watch movies and put the subtitles in French and how engaging that can be in helping the students practice reading in French. And finally, encouraging your child to write in French. And that's usually the last piece to develop, maybe grocery lists, a story, a letter, describing something, anything so that they're practicing their writing in French as well. Okay, we have given a lot of resources, but we have even more for you at the end of this session, which is very shortly. You will get a link to a slide deck and it has all of these resources for you. We have created some quick infographics that you can print out and you can use and refer to when you're engaging with your child or your child's practicing French. And this is the slide deck that I'm speaking of. So I know one of my colleagues is probably going to post this link right here in the chat box so that you have access to this slide deck right away. And in this slide deck are all the resources that we shared with you during this session, as well as access to PDFs of the infographics and checklists that you can use to help your child continue to develop their French vocabulary and literacy skills. With that, we have come to the end of our presentation. I do want to just take the time to thank all of our presenters this evening. We will open the floor for about 5 minutes for Q&A. But we do have your contact information. So any questions that we are unable to answer at this particular time, we will send out a Q&A sheet with some answers to your questions, as long as you post them in the chat. So definitely post your questions in the chat. I want to thank our presenters, specifically Madame Fursi, who talked about listening and how important it is to start there, to really start with listening and thinking about listening before we even listen, during and after. And Mr. Ramirez talked about how speaking needs to be relevant. It needs to be meaningful to the kids. And it's great when they are responding to listening with speaking. And thank you to Mademoiselle Brandt and Madame DeVoe Matthews for sharing and really breaking down reading into those two key components, so that decoding and that language comprehension, they work together to give our students reading comprehension. And we do pay attention to both of those aspects, not only in the classroom, but we're giving you resources to do that at home as well. So with that being said, we now open the chat to any live Q&As for the next 5 minutes or so. We understand that we have gone over time, so if you have to go and you do have a question, you can post it in the chat. And like I said, we will respond and send those answers through email. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Are there any questions currently in the chat, Mr. Ramirez?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you, Madame Moore, for bringing us together, for making this event possible. So Madame Moore, academic coordinator at the Dufferin Peel Catholic School Board, making this evening possible for families, for parents. We love the participation, the attendance for tonight. It's wonderful to see the support for French language education. We're very excited about the future, about the possibility of bringing this type of event every year in Dufferin Peel. The link for the resources has been posted a few times in the chat. If you've missed it, please let me know and I'll post it again. I'm looking for questions. Do we have another class? You might have class tomorrow, so go to class tomorrow. But if it's referring to this session, this is a one-time session, but we are sharing the resources with you in the chat. And the recording for tonight, because we are recording this event, will be posted on the board website. So if you want to watch it again, you want to watch it with your child, you missed something, please refer to the board website. Again, go under programs, language, and look for French Immersion and Extended French. That's what you got to look for. I see a lot of thank yous. Thank you for the presentation, great resources. We hope it was hopeful and useful. Yes, the recording will be posted on the board website. Please look for French Immersion and Extended French under programs. I posted the link one last time, the link to the resources that were discussed tonight. I do not see any questions at this point, Madame Moore, so I think we're going to be wrapping up the session. There are no questions, just a lot of thank yous.
Well, thank everybody. I thank you for sharing your time with us, sharing your family with us if we had some FSL students, and we hope that you learned something about literacy in the FSL programs. If you have more questions, or if you can't think of a question now, but maybe tomorrow you say, oh, I have a question about this, no problem. Please reach out to the board office. You can call actually the board office and speak to either myself, Natasha Moore, or there is Mr. Ramirez, Matias Ramirez, and we are here to answer any of your questions. Okay. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. It's still, the sun's still out a little bit, so go for a walk and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you to the presenters. Fantastic job.
Bonne nuit. Au revoir.
Au revoir, merci beaucoup. Salut.
Au revoir tout le monde. Au revoir.